Hey folks, welcome to Airtime Paintball, where people come to find out all the information they need to get good deals on paintball stuff. And today, not a new marker, but I think roughly a zillion people have asked me to talk about it, so we're going to talk about it. It's the Planet Eclipse Gtek 170r. We're going to shoot it, we're going to learn about it, and we're also going to do a full maintenance breakdown. It might be a little bit of a longer video, and I know my videos get long, right? But if you stick around, you're going to learn how this thing works, how it feels, what's good about it, what might not be good about it, and how to service it all together. So stick around. The 170R. So yeah, the 170R. Been around for a while. Great, amazing workhorse marker, and this is like the third review in a row that I've started out like this, where I usually go like the the good and the not so good and should you buy one, right? That's like the thing that I've done. Well, this is the third one in a row. I'm just going to cut right to the chase here. You should buy one. They're great. I don't know if there's a better new marker value when it comes to performance and all-around quality than this marker. And let's just get it right out of this case right away. This is my personal 170. This case is not brand new, but it is the case that they come in. It's the Planet Eclipse standard aluminum case. They've been selling for a long time. And the strange thing about these cases, at first blush, I remember the first time I saw one of these cases years ago, I was kind of like, wow, that's pretty high end, like an aluminum case. That's pretty awesome. Well, you know what? It turns out these are like the worst cases in paintball, frankly. They take up a ton of room, and what you can put in there is very limited because they have the molded foam liner where everything just fits in it. So you're limited to just what goes in here, which isn't that big of a deal. The biggest problem is that aluminum skin is super thin, and if you actually use this thing as your storage case where you toss it in your gear bag and such, it's going to be beat to a pulp in no time. Like everything they touch dents it. The finish scratches off of it. I've bought and sold lots of Planet Eclipse markers, and I get the most beautiful, well cared for marker you'd ever see, and the case looked like it was dragged behind a truck for 50 miles. They look bad. They do protect the marker, but they just look terrible. They get all beat up. Not a fan, in case you can't tell. Enough about the case. Everybody knows all the stuff you get with a marker, right? Lube, tools, spares, manual, gun, barrel. It's always the same stuff. No difference here. That's all fine. Let's just rip it right out here and get a look at it. The 170R. Now you might notice this one's pretty fancy. That's my personal one. That's not a stock color combination. I have that anode. This is the stock barrel that I had anode to match, and we're going to talk about that more in a bit. I actually have this marker Cerakoted, and it was a complete unmitigated disaster. I thought it was ruined forever. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus here, but the person who did it got baked on. Cerakote, when it's done properly, is extremely durable. And as far as what he did to put it on, he did it right. Like it was almost impossible to get off. The problem was he got it into the ASA, into the regulator body, the threads, all the area where the regulator O-ring seals against the frame was all covered with rough Cerakote. Like it wouldn't hold air. It leaked in like a bunch of places. It was a disaster. And I was very fortunate. I found Armored Anodizing. Talked to those guys, and I talked to several anodizing shops, and nobody wanted to touch it, which understandably, right? Because it's almost like a no-win. Like it's so hard to get that stuff off. There's no way anyone's gonna be willing to pay for the real time it takes to do all that. And if it comes out bad, and the person's gonna be mad, I wouldn't have been. I knew that it was a disaster, but I get why no one wanted to do it. Well, they took it on, Armored Anodizing. He spent days using fine media bead blasting to strip off that Cerakote, and then hand polished it all, and then did this amazing anodizing job. And it's perfect. It shoots lasers. It doesn't leak a bit. It's awesome. So I wanted to give that extra special remark or comment out to Armored Anodizing for saving my beloved 170. All right. So The 170R, like I mentioned, it's not a new marker. It's been out for some time. But I've been asked lots and lots of times, when are you going to do a real video and talk about the 170? And so here we are. I love mine, and so I figured I would share my experiences with you all. We're going to go through the whole thing, take a look at all the features, then we're going to break it down, show you how maintenance works, all that. So I've mentioned this in other videos. I'll give you the quick rundown here. There's a line of markers that started several years back with the Gamma Core. This is a Gamma Core marker. We're going to talk more about the bolt engine, or the engine, in a bit. Starting with the original Gtech. It was very similar to this. The rear grip is the same, but the trigger frame is composite, as was the feed neck, and it had a macro line going from the ASA to what was the regulator in the front. But the core was the same, electronics the same. The OLED on the back here, standard on the 170, it was optional on the Gtech. And if you ever were to fund it, the original Gtechs are still a great value to use. They shoot great. They shoot just like this. It's all the stuff that shoots the ball is the same. So those are great. If you happen to get one that doesn't have the screen, they're available. I think they're $70 and very easy to install, so you can get the OLED. But that was optional. And apart from that, pretty much the same marker. Then they did an upgrade, and they came with the Gtech 160R. The 160R had an aluminum frame and feed neck, and it did away with the macro line by putting what they call an AT pipe right through here. I'm going to put a picture there. Wait, there. And you can see that AT pipe, where the air would come from the ASA in the frame up to here and then across the bottom of the trigger guard into the regulator. And if you've seen some of the older Geo models or the LVs, they also use that same design to get the air to the regulator in the foregrip. Again, same core, same electronics. If you look at all these different ones I'm talking about, the Gtech, the 160R, and this one, if you look at this rear grip, it's literally the same. Like when you buy replacement grips, it's the same grips for all of those. So yeah, that was also a great marker and a nice upgrade, right? They came with the OLED, all aluminum construction, and like I said, no more macro line. They had the AT pipe. Those are all solid upgrades for those, and again, great used values those markers are. Then we had this. This is what replaced the 160, the Gtech 170R. And it has, again, the same core, and again, that same shape of the grip frame in the back. The electronics are the same, comes with the OLED, but several meaningful upgrades. One, you'll notice, of course, no more hose of any kind, no macro line, no AT pipe, and in fact, no regulator in the foregrip. The foregrip now has a 9-volt battery in it. The regulator was moved. They completely redesigned the trigger frame and put the regulator right here where my finger goes, right above the ASA, into the trigger frame itself, and that's where the regulation happens, which is great. No more transfer circuit for the air, right? You didn't have to feed the air from the ASA through all this stuff. You had, with either macro line or the AT pipe, you have more parts, more O-rings, more possible chances for leaking, and also maybe in the way of gripping. Now, I don't mind those so much, but I certainly like to have this with, all in the open with no hoses or lines of any kind, so that's important. And it was a reliability upgrade because no longer is it possible to whack that AT pipe or have a bad O-ring in there. It just doesn't exist anymore. And it's not to say that AT pipe system was problematic or that macro line markers don't work as well, right? Because we use those for many years. They do work fine, but the fact is, more exposed stuff, more O-rings to possibly, in theory, go bad, and they just don't exist on this marker. So obviously, they're not going to fail and leak if they're not on here, right? So those were all great upgrades. Also, the eye system changed to the light pipe, and we're going to take a look at that. The eyes are not directly exposed to the breech, which is pretty cool. There's a clear piece of plastic where the eyes shine through. It's kind of shaped like a C, like this, and the light shines through there and across the breech and into the other side, which has the same thing, so that when you clean that off, you just clean those off, and the eyes are not directly exposed to paint, which is pretty cool. It also, They also changed this so with that system so that there's no wires between the body and the frame, which is previously to as far as I remember it. Well, let's see, MacDev Clone 5s had the wireless body frame, and someone might prove me wrong here, but chronologically, this might be one of the first one or two mid-range markers to have a completely wireless junction here, where you just take the screw, there's one under the bolt, one under this grip, you take them apart and it just comes apart, right? When there's no wires in between. Pretty cool. So yeah, those are the improvements that these came, and those are, to me, those are all very meaningful improvements. They make the marker more reliable, they make it more comfortable to hold, better ergonomics, and of course, I think that they're probably more reliable. And again, I never had any problem with the wires going in between, but if you're taking the body and frame apart and there's wires in between, you have to unplug them and plug them back in order to separate the pieces. That's just an opportunity for a problem, right? If you're kind of manhandle that plug too much and wiggle it loose, you can get a bad connection. Or if you've had paintball markers long enough, I'm sure at some point you've done it, or you know someone who has accidentally broken a wire because they had to mess with it and they kind of gripped it too much or wiggled it around and broke it, and you just don't have to worry about that. Kind of like the extra O-rings on the air transfer circuit, right? It's not that they're terrible to have that, but when you do away with it, it necessarily makes things more reliable. It's just something else you're not messing with. So all great on that front. We can see here that, of course, like the 160, all aluminum construction. We have a clamping feed neck with a really nice, large-sized thumb wheel on there. Let's see if I can get this in my other camera view here. The thumb wheel here, very easy to turn and adjust. It's great stuff. I love these things. The trigger is a screw-on shoe, and there's lots of aftermarket ones available. They're not adjustable for rake this way, but you do have adjustable pre and post travel and activation, which is all good. I shouldn't say activation, actually. It's not activation either. It is the spring tension. There's a little metal leaf spring in there, and you can adjust how much preload you get on that little spring. And I like that personally, because the way they come delivered, they're a little bit floppy for me. They feel like they have too much play, and all I had to do was turn that screw in to put more preload on that leaf spring. And I really like the feel of them. Some people you'll see talk about just taking the leaf spring out and pitching it and just using the natural pivoting and the spring return of the micro switch is enough spring. I don't like them that soft, but a lot of people do that. No problems there. Okay, so I mentioned I was going to talk about the barrel. The stock barrel as delivered is perfectly fine. It's no great shakes, really. You'll read when people ask, like I always talk about how I'm on the Facebook paintball groups and such, and also I've had these conversations in person. You'll have people ask, like, oh, I've got a 170, are there any upgrades I should do? And the answer to that from a lot of people is something along the lines of, oh, those markers are amazingly great, but the barrel they come with isn't too great. You're going to want to buy an upgraded barrel. So I have a couple issues with that. First of all, there's nothing at all wrong with these barrels, and you can get other backs for them so if you want to match your paint to the bore of your barrel, you can buy other backs. And I'm like really getting to where I'm beating a dead horse on this. But I'm going to tell you again that I've said with many other markers and many other barrels, and it's what I did here. This stock barrel, you can see, of course, I went to the trouble of having it anodized. The bore on the stock barrel is 689, and the stock back, I should say. 689 is meaty enough that you can have this board to accept freak inserts. I had Ross at Boss Paintball bore this one for me. I believe he charged $30, and if people start bugging you and you don't, it's $35. I apologize, but I'm pretty sure it was $30. And like I said, I mentioned this like 100 times whenever I talk about barrels. In my opinion, doing this is the most economical way to go if you're a person who's going to have multiple markers, or like over time, like buy more markers. I'm constantly getting different ones because I love trying different stuff. And the problem with that is if you want to match your paint to your bore, whenever you get a different barrel or a different marker that comes with a different barrel, if you want the whole set, now you got to go buy a bunch of backs, or like if you have a force It comes with a couple inserts. For the Acculock, you got to buy the rest of the inserts for the Acculock. Or if you buy a shocker, it comes with one insert for like a Freak XL insert. And if you want to match that, you buy a big set of inserts, right? It's all like one of my favorite markers, dies. You buy an M3, comes with ULS back. Could I come with 2 actually, the M3 Plus. But if you want a full assortment of matching ability, you got to buy more. Those things are like $60 each, right? So, like I do on all my markers, 30 bucks. I had this board. You've probably seen this before in my other videos. Here's one of my sets of standard Freak inserts. I bought this set used for $40 on the internet. And I mean, I got this cool Paintball DNA case that was like 25 bucks or something. I just think it's cool. It fits on like this. There's a magnet in the end to keep it shut. I really like that. But you don't have to have that. I bought, the first time I got standard Freak inserts, I bought a $3 Nintendo. I figure I think it's a 3DS case that's the right size, and you can put like 6 Freak inserts in it, and it was $3 shipped on eBay. But whatever the case is, right? Inexpensive, 40 bucks, and you have this. But here's the thing: as you move forward in your paintball marker owning life, you still always have this thing. So, like, you know, I had many other markers. I have die barrels that are bored. I can go on and on, right? All kinds of different barrels that are bored in the same way. And so I got the 170, right? All I got to do to have a full barrel kit is pay 30 bucks to get this thing done, and boom. Now I have a full barrel kit. I can use my Freaks in this barrel. And each time you get a new marker or a different marker, whatever, and you do that, it like the savings gets better and better and better, right? Every time you do it, there's another marker that for 30 bucks you have a whole additional barrel kit. And I don't think there's a better way to fly with doing that. I had a recently sold GI Victus, beautiful, beautiful marker. Came with a set of backs, but it's an older marker, so the backs are big compared to today's paint. I just took the biggest back, had it bored for Freaks, and boom, 30 bucks later, I've got a whole kit again, right? So yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk about that for an hour, but that's what I've done with this. And don't let anybody tell you that these barrels aren't any good. Even without the Freaks, it's fine. But I'm saying I use the Freak inserts to come close. I'm not too worried about matching. It really doesn't make a huge difference, but you do get a little bit more efficiency by, you know, some sort of approximately matching. Or a slight overbore, what have you. But the point is, you don't need to buy a new barrel. Bore it for Freaks. You have your kit, shoots lasers. I mean, I've ruined plenty of people's day with this thing with the stock barrel. It shoots great. Okay, enough about that. The core is the Gamma core, and this is one of the best engines in paintball. And you can see it's nice and clean. I've wiped it down for the video. And I did that because we're going to break it down and show maintenance here in a couple of minutes. But Gamma core, great spool system, incredibly reliable, soft shot, efficient. It's so good. I mean, Planet Eclipse just keeps building more and more markers with the same core, right? You have the ETHA 2 and the EMEC, which is hugely popular. Look elsewhere on my channel for my Hot Rod EMEC video. Same core, Gamma core. The Gtech has it, Gtech 160, Gtech 170, and even the CS2/CS2 Pro has the Gamma Pro, which is a sort of lightly updated, but same technology, same design properties as the Gamma core. And in fact, so good that Shocker Paintball /DLX, rather than engineer their own core, just copied this and put it in. The Lux X is essentially my opinion is it's kind of a poorly executed one, but it is a Gamma core copy. And then the Amp Shocker came out during like last November, and that one is even more of a copy, to the point where when you disassemble them and put them on a table together, I mean, if you didn't know for sure, you would have trouble picking which one was which. I mean, they don't even bother trying to make it look different. It's clearly a copy, and there's a reason for that. It works, and it works great. And again, that one is kind of a poorly executed copy. It has problems because they've changed some of the parameters, and not for the better. Notably, with paint handling is not great there. But whatever, that's beside the point. Great core, super reliable, and super easy to maintain. And we're gonna get it apart here in a minute and talk about it. I mentioned that there's no more regulator in the foregrip. What you have in the foregrip is the battery and just a plastic grip up here. There's nothing else in there. The battery just snaps onto a harness here. I'm going to hold it in front of this so you can see if I can do that right. Yeah, there it is. And it just slips in to the grip. And when you take this off, by the way, I'm not going to take the body and frame apart just because there's no point. But there's a screw under that grip. That's one of the 2 screws you need to separate the body and the frame. And this just slips right on and snaps on, no problem. The other one of those screws is under the gamma core here. I'll put it in this other camera so you can see. I got a frog in my throat today. There's a screw right there. Those are the 2 screws that get it apart. So, what's it like to live with? I mentioned the trigger is not hugely adjustable, but if you're not a big fan of the blade style trigger, there are deuce triggers available for these. Infamous, I believe, makes a deuce for it. Core has an inexpensive deuce for these. There's various shape ones. I think Stanchi has some 3D printed various shape triggers. I personally like a blade. I'm glad that it came with that. But not hugely adjustable, but a good feeling, functional trigger nonetheless. The shot is very soft. It's one of my very favorite shots in paintball. I know lots of people, and I have other videos where you can hear me go on and on about this. A lot of people claim that the IV core, that's what's in a Geo4, and also a CS1, CS1.5, CSR, and the Geo4 all have that core, as well as the Geo3, it was optional, Geo 3.5 it came with. Those all have IV core. And the common sort of wisdom is that the IV core is a softer shot, but the gamma core is a bit more reliable. When I say reliable, I don't mean IV cores break all the time and are crappy. I just mean that they need a little bit more attention to keep them, more frequent maintenance, that's all. But I've shot both extensively, and I don't agree. I think that the gamma core and the IV core all have almost exactly the same sort of softness. They just sound different. It's my opinion anyway. But they do have a great shot. Extremely reliable. I have a friend that has one of these with nearly 200,000 shots on it. And, I mean, if he's taken it apart 4 times since he bought it, I'd be stunned. I mean, the thing is just like absolutely stonehammer reliable, even in the face of neglect. Like I mentioned, the stock barrel is perfectly fine. Have it board for freaks, no problems there. It's reasonably efficient. Oh, I didn't mention it comes with a Pops ASA here. The ASA, we just, I keep trying to do this. For the ASA, this little portion here slides forward, and when the gun is gassed up, when you push the button, it kind of almost automatically comes forward. It's very easy to move, not difficult to push back, reliable, good stuff. Battery life is excellent. The LCD on the back is not, it's not huge, but it does give you the information that you need, and it's bright enough that you can see it when you're outdoors. Maybe not. I mean, it's not magic, right? If it's in direct sunlight, it's hard to see it, but it's better. Notably, one of my other favorite markers that is mid-range price is the 6, and this definitely has a brighter screen than a 6. I can see this when I'm outside a lot of the time, at least enough to see if I'm turning it on and off for sure. One button operation, very simple to use, simple to program, but it does have a full feature set as far as ramping. It's right now, I used this recently in a tournament, so it's actually locked in NXL mode at 10.2 balls per second, etc. And it's got whatever other modes that you might like to have. You can shoot it in just regular semi, etc. Right? I think most of us these days are probably setting it up in NXL mode, and it accommodates that. So what we're going to do is, first of all, I ended up not having time to finish this for you guys until today, but a while back I made the shooting video portion, and let's take a look at that, and then when we come back, I'm going to break this down and show you everything that's involved in how to maintain it, and it is not difficult, and it does not take very long. And it's one of the great things about this marker, how easy it is to keep it going and take care of it. So let's take a look at that, and we'll be right back. So here we have it, the 170 ready to shoot. I just want to give you a quick sort of view of it shooting. I always say this every time. You can't really tell a lot about the sound in a video. It's always different. It's never what it sounds like when you're actually shooting it, and it's just so quiet and soft. I don't know if it's going to convey that, but it really is. I know I've mentioned this in the video. People talk about the sound, the shot quality. I don't even like saying shot quality, right? It's a shot character. It's not about quality, right? This is not a performance thing. The shot character of these, to me, is among the best there are. They're super soft. You can barely feel it shoot. And one in particular, one comparison that mystifies me is I see people all the time say that the DSR has a softer feeling shot than a 170, and it's not close. Like I think I've read that 1,000 times. And I've shot them both back to back, like had them both on a table and picked up and shot. And that is not at all my experience. And that's not to criticize the DSR. I like the way the DSR shoots. It has a very firm sort of, I don't know how to describe it, kind of concise. Like it's not poppy really, but it's kind of like a thumpy sort of. It's not as soft feeling as this. It's a great shot character. I really enjoy it. But to say that it's softer, I just don't see it. But yeah, the 170, if you like a soft shot, it is not like the super soft. It's not quite as soft as an M3 Plus, not quite as soft as a Vanquish, certainly, but nonetheless very soft. And with the stock barrel, and I mentioned the whole freak bore thing. That, like I said, the stock barrel board for freaks. Now these stock barrels you don't hear much about. People, I've even read criticism about them not being machined right and stuff. I've never witnessed that. They shoot fine to me, and they're very quiet. So yeah, having the stock 170 barrel board for freaks is a very economical and effective way to have a barrel kit. I've made no secret that method of having barrel kits is my favorite thing, right? Because all these different barrels, you have one, and I bore it for freaks, and boom, I've got a whole kit. Because I had that same set of inserts, I just used it with everything. So, but anyway, let's shoot it and see what we think. Oh yeah. That's such a soft shot. I love to shoot. No idea. Let me see if I get a little bit different angle for you. No idea where people are getting that these don't have as soft a shot as a DSR. I just don't see it. My mysterious fence post I always talk about that you guys can never see. I'm just like brutalizing it. It's like 100 feet away, over and over and over again. Such a great shot. I just love these things. Oh, I think I shot through all the paint already. Oh, a couple more maybe. One more. That was it. So yeah, 170. Super fun to shoot. Ergonomics I really like. Let me turn the buzzer off here. I mentioned that this grip dimension front to back, it's a little beefy for sure. If you have small hands, might not be your favorite thing. But the counterpoint to that, my son's first couple of markers when he was 12, and he grew a lot in the last year, but when he started playing, he was pretty small with small hands, and he shot a Gtech and a 160R, both of which used this same grip. And he had no problem with it. He has very small hands. But preference-wise, not everyone might prefer this. I certainly like the Dye ultralight grip, the way they're very slender in this area. I do like that better. But it's just one of those things where I don't notice it when I'm playing ever. The front grip I really like. It's plain, not much to look at, but it feels really good. It provides you a solid platform to shoot. And that's really all you can ask for, right? The grip material has a good, proper traction and softness to it, but it's very durable, doesn't tear. Perfectly good grips. Ergo-wise, not much to complain about these markers. So 170R, there it is. All right, so yeah, you can tell by pretty much this whole review and everything I was saying in the shooting review there. I just can't get enough of these. One thing I did want to mention, ergonomically, not everyone likes this rear grip because you can see how deep it is, right? It's not thick. When you look at it head on like that, it's not fat, but it is pretty big because of the front to back length of it. And not everybody likes that. The CS2 style is definitely smaller, and I think it's a little bit better feeling ergonomically. And if you look at other markers, the Dye DSR is in this same price range, and it has a much more trim. It has that UL frame, right? For me, the gold standard in ergonomics for trigger frames are those Dye markers, and the DSR is no different. Definitely more trim feeling than this. And then we have, of course, the shockers, including the newer amp shocker. Definitely another dimensionally, like front to back, and this spacing is actually very similar to a shocker, but the shockers have much trimmer grips. This foregrip is like half the diameter of this. The rear grip is much smaller, and if you like that sort of smaller feeling, you might like those ergonomically better. I will say that the actual grips themselves are awesome on these. They never wear out. They are just the right combination of durable but good, but comfortable, and have good traction. They're construction-wise, lots of markers or lots of companies could take a lesson from how well made these are. And they're not complicated, and they're not toolless either, by the way. And I've mentioned this before. I don't really care much about being toolless, frankly. If the fit and finish is good, and the grip is comfortable, and like I can really get a hold of it. I always say this, right? If it's grippy, like if the material is grippy but durable at the same time, I'll take that over toolless any day. Not that they're necessarily mutually exclusive, but whether I have to spend 2 seconds with an Allen key or not makes no difference to me. But whether the grip is crap or not does matter. And the reason I say that is the amp shocker has those trim ergos as far as all of the front and rear grip are definitely smaller in your hand, and if you like that, that's something to check out for sure. But the grips themselves are literally the worst grips ever in paintball. I mean, they're super hard. You sweat. You can't hold on to the thing. I don't know how anyone even uses them. It's a mystery to me. So yeah, then that's kind of what I mean, is that it does have a bit of a more trim feel in your hand, but and I tell you, I actually I like the way that feels in my hands probably a little bit better than I like the way this one feels. And I'm not talking about materials, I mean like the size of the grips. I do prefer that sort of trimmer amp thing, and that's why I like M3s so much, the Dye markers with those trim grips. But the materials are so great on this versus how terrible they are on the amp, that if you were to ask me just off the top of my head, like, okay, so ergonomically, what do you like better, the 170 or the amp? I'm like, 170 without even a question, right? And that's why, because actually gripping it is so much better. So much more durable. Well, I shouldn't say they're more durable. I'm sure those other grips are hard as a rock, so I'm sure they're durable. But they're literally like molded hard plastic, where these are all a hard rubber. Much better, in my opinion. But yeah, so great shot. You can hear. I love to shoot these things. They're very comfortable to shoot. Really don't have much bad to say about it. So what I want to do now, let's go ahead and take this down, and we're going to learn about what it takes to work on this thing. So let me start by taking the barrel off so I don't hit myself in the head with it, because that's how I roll. I'm going to just put this over here. And so when we start here, I didn't actually grab my Allen wrench to pull this grip off, and you don't need to get in here. The reason for that is the battery, as I mentioned, is up front. And I'm going to go ahead and pull the battery out. This is a new battery, but if you're going to change the battery, it's as simple as that. And this grip comes off. Now, I did say earlier I wasn't going to separate it, but that seems silly. Like I told you how great it was, how these come apart, so I'll go ahead and separate it. But front grip just slides off. And even though it slides off that easily, you can see this tab on the bottom, and the hole in the bottom of the grip that snaps together. I've never had one of these slip or come off ever in years of using this style grip. So they're easy to come on and off, but they stay on great too. And then we have a hard plastic molded battery plug, which doesn't seem like, who cares about the battery plug, right? Well, I mentioned in my Prime XTS MacDev review that I really love those markers a lot. And and this seems small, but that's like a $1,500 marker. And the battery connection on that thing is like the cheesiest one of those like little black plastic, like it's not rigid, right? It's like soft, like a little cover over the plugs. And I mean, it just looks to me like every time I touch it, I'm certain I'm going to break it or ruin it somehow. It's the cheapest possible battery connection that exists. And here we have a marker that's like 40% less money, and it actually has the molded plastic battery connection, which is going to be much more Much more durable, in my opinion. So I really like that also. All right, so anyway, that's how the battery comes out, and then we're going to pop the core out. You just slide the little cap up here, and the easiest way to do it for me is to grab it like this and put your thumb on the back and just push your thumb back, and it just comes right out. While I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and take this apart like I mentioned. So what I do is I hold around the body and around the trigger frames. Look, I'm kind of squeezing it together right now, and I'm just going to, a side note, these Allen wrenches, by the way, are ball ends. If you have very tight bolts, ball end Allens are not designed for, like, when you, if this screw is really tight and I had to like haul on it, you don't want to use ball ends for that. You can snap them off. And sometimes they snap off in a way that's stuck in there and they're hard to get out. So don't do that. Use regular square end Allens like this one. Here, I'll put it in the camera over here like that. Not ball ends like this, right? But I know that these are not very tight. That's why I'm using these. So a note, this is a note for like going forward in your use of tools. Same thing with tightening, by the way. If you're gonna like really crank down on something and get it tight, don't do that with a ball end. You'll snap it off eventually, and no one likes that. So let me see how easy that came apart. I'm gonna take this front screw out, put this here, and I'm gonna hold it together because I don't wanna bend or give this an opportunity to come apart where it's not supposed to, because there's another screw in it still. So I'm gonna hold it like that, then hold it like this so I can get this back screw. You can see how easy those. I knew they weren't super tight. And by the way, when you put yours together, they don't have to be super tight. This is threading into threaded aluminum. You have a steel screw threading into aluminum, so don't like go crazy and like torque on this thing like it has to survive a nuclear blast. It doesn't have to. And just like a snug up, a little bit of a snug, good enough, right? So you do that, and it just comes apart. That's what I was talking about the wireless thing. Pretty neat. In the underneath these eye covers, all we have here is those light pipes, and I'm going to show you here. There's a clip, and we're going to you slide that clip toward the front of the marker, and then this cover just lifts off, and you can see in here. There's the let me get closer to this. There's the detent there, and then the space for the light pipe. The light pipe itself is in the eye cover. And the way that works, I'm going to pop this back on. Let me snap that back on. Okay. So when this is together, here we get back in this view over here. The light pipes protrude out the bottom. Let me see if I can get this the right angle. Yeah, so you can see there. Right there. There's the right there on each side. The light pipe is sticking out. The light pipe is just that clear piece of plastic that the eye shines through in order to work across the breech. The actual eyes are here on the frame, which we can see on this board. You can see this here and this. Those are the eyes. And they stick up a bit from the board. And when the body goes together, those eyes, let me see if I can get this in the right spot. I'm not very good at doing that, so bear with me. The eyes stick up into the body and go behind that light pipe. So that's why when I talk about how they're not exposed to paint, look, they're not even in the breech. They're down here on the frame, and that light pipe, on the bottom of the light pipe, is where the eye is shining into, and it shines up that light pipe and across. It's a great system, and this is how it's able to be wireless, right? So we can see here, this little board, if you were ever to need new eyes, what you would be doing is replacing this board. And it has an eye on each side, one screw holds it down, and then the wires from the eyes come back and go down into the frame and plug onto the board. And that portion is the same as the previous Gtechs. They just instead of the other end of that wire being eyes themselves, the other end is this board, and that's how that's different. One thing to note when you take it apart, this little gasket right here, where my finger is, this pops out, and that is a crucial seal of air between the frame and the body. And it only goes in one way, it's oblong, but it doesn't need any maintenance generally, just wipe it off or whatever. But if you're not careful, like this is more for, like right now on this big white table, it's no problem, but You know, a lot of times if you're at the field and you need to disassemble your marker for whatever reason, you might be on a picnic table or worse, right? Even on the ground, maybe. Who knows where you're at? And that thing can definitely go flying. And if you lose that, you're done playing with your 170 for the day. So don't lose it. There is one in the spares kit, by the way, but it's a good idea. If you're going to take your marker apart, mess with it, I suggest taking this off, and the very first thing you should do is just lift that thing out of there and put it aside. Like put it with your screws or whatever. Like you can see, can you see here? I have my screws I've taken out and that way when I'm flipping this around, I won't accidentally bump it or just fling it off and off it goes, and it's missing in action now, right? So you don't want to do that. Okay. I mentioned that, as you can see, this foregrip is just for the battery now, right? The regulator has moved into the frame. So we're going to take a look at how to service that. Super easy. We have, I forget what size it is. It's 5/32. There's 2 bolts in the bottom here, and we're going to, they're pretty long. You got to thread them out pretty far till they're all the way out. There's only 2. And what we're going to do now is we're going to look at how to service both the regulator and the velocity adjuster that lives in the ASA. So we're going to pull these screws out, put them aside, and once those 2 screws are out, this the ASA just pulls straight out of the bottom, right? And you can see the spring is sitting on top of it. Sometimes the spring will stay inside the grip, which is the regulator body, right? And it's pretty loose. I wiped all this down, by the way. Usually, if this is all greased, it will. Well, you don't have to grease the spring. I'm saying in general, if all the stuff is greased, it'll be more likely to stay in there. I wiped it all down before the video just so you could see it easily, and so I wasn't making a mess while I was taking it apart. But I'm going to grease it all and put it back together. So that spring, that's the HPR, the high pressure regulator spring, that just comes out of the bottom, and then inside there is the regulator piston. I'm going to pull that out with a needle nose. You don't want to manhandle this thing. It's not hard to get out. Just give it a light grasp and then give it a little wiggle back and forth a little bit. And you can also lever against the bottom of the frame. Let me see if I can get over here more. Just give it a little bit of a wiggle, and I'm barely squeezing it. And then just lever up a little bit. Well, see, you might slip off because I try to err on the side of not scratching it up, right? So it might slip off, but there. See, you just lever it up a little bit, and it just pops out. That's the regulator piston. That is your HPR. And then inside the grip frame, there's just a hole. That's the regulator body. It's part of the frame. And I'm going to wipe this down. So this is where we're starting to get to our actual maintenance. If you're going to do maintenance on this reg, and you do not need to do this often at all, I believe the maintenance interval is specified in the manual, and honestly, I don't remember what it is. Well, just follow the maintenance schedule, what's recommended in the manual. I'm just showing you how to do it. So this piston is very simple. It's just a piece of machined aluminum with 1 O-ring on it, and we're just going to wipe it down, and I'm going to grab my trusty Dow 33. No need to reinvent the wheel. Dow 33 Light is excellent lube for every single paintball application that exists, except for specifically where you need oil, like the rammer on a poppet, for example. Apart from that, Dow 33 is the way. I just get a little bit on my finger here, and the way I do it usually is I kind of rub it off on the edge so I leave a little pile of it, and then I put my finger over the top and turn the part and just kind of smush that little pile I made. And and I just do it a couple times, like so I get even distribution all the way around the ring. And you don't need a ton. You only need enough that you can tell that there's some on there all the way around. That's it. If you have globs of grease all the way around, that's too much. All you need, you can see in this video here, is just enough that you can tell you've greased it. And that's all you have to do. So I'm going to set this down for a minute, and I'm going to take my clean paper towel, and I'm going to give this a quick, my pinky just fits in these regulator bodies, so I'm going to give this a quick wipe out. They typically won't be too dirty as long as you have a clean air source at your field, but give it a quick wipe out there. And then, now I don't know if this is necessary, honestly. I don't think it says to do this in the manual, but I just prefer to do it. I get a little bit of grease on my finger here, and I stick it inside that regulator body, and like I wipe off my finger on it, so now there's like a little glob of lube in there, and then I stick my pinky in there, and I just like run it all around the inside of the bore. Can't hurt. And again, if you could see I just did that. I look at my pinky here. There's like barely any lube on there. I didn't put a giant pile in there. Just enough to sort of, just so that you can tell you've put some in the bore. And then we've got our freshly greased regulator piston here. You just simply stick it back in there and push it straight in like that. And that's it. That's in. Then the spring goes right back on top. And we're going to put that aside for a minute. That's complete. Now we have the velocity adjuster. And the velocity adjuster is, I believe I got a 3/8 wrench here. And this won't be super tight. You just give it a little twist and thread that off. This is really just the cap for the velocity adjuster. It does have a little O-ring in it, though. I'm going to show you in a second. And then inside here is the velocity adjuster. The way we get to the velocity adjuster is we're going to put our Allen wrench in the adjuster as if we were literally adjusting the velocity and thread it in, not out. We thread it in. It's all one piece. And we just keep threading it in until the threads let go, and now you have the velocity adjuster here. And this is the same kind of thing. I'm gonna wipe this down. It has one O-ring on it. I'm just wiping that down, and then I'm gonna take my trusty Dow 33 here. I'm trying to get this all in my little close video, and I'm failing badly. Here we go. Yeah, there, I guess. Same old thing. Like, you can see how much lube I have on my finger. Not very much. Even looks like more on the camera than I even have. And I just kind of wipe that off on the part. And then I just spin the part around and smooth that into the O-ring. And the result is, when I'm done, if you look at this, just like the regulator piston, there's not a giant mountain of lube. It's just enough that you can see that you've got it all on there. And this is going... oh, I didn't clean it. Excuse me. Let me stand that up in my lid. I do the pinky treatment again. Actually, this is a little bit small for that. That's why I brought a Q-tip. I'm going to stick it in there, the bore of where that velocity adjuster goes, and this would be the bore that O-ring rides in, right? So I'm going to stick my Q-tip in there and run it around a little bit. If you really have a reason, if you put a Q-tip in there and the thing is like ultra dirty and gross gunk is coming out, maybe take some sort of, I have a spray bottle where I have like 1/3 alcohol, 2/3 water. Maybe spray some of that in there and then dry it out, blow it out, compressed air, maybe get it extra cleaned out. But this one's not too bad. Clean it out with a Q-tip. And then we're going to go ahead and put the velocity adjuster back in there. Now, the way you reinstall it, remember we threaded it in to get it off, right? So you just put your finger on top to keep it against the threads, put your Allen wrench in there and back it out, right? Counterclockwise, and you'll get the threads back. So when I do this, you know that on a Planet Eclipse ASA / velocity adjuster, out is more velocity. And you don't want to put it together accidentally and have it be super, super hot. So what I do is I turn it to where the velocity adjuster is flush. Now, we know that's hotter than you're going to use. They're never flush when you're shooting them. But I make it flush, and then I turn it in like 3.5 turns. So we got half, 1, half, 2, half, 3.5. That is more than enough that we can be sure the gun won't be hot. It might not even be enough air to cycle when it comes out. When we put it back together, you'll want to air it up and slowly back it out while you shoot it till it starts firing. Wait till you get a good sounding cycle, and then crony, right? Okay, so we've got that back together, and we've got our, let me get this lube out of the way for the moment. Kind of making a mess of all this stuff here. We've got the reg completely serviced. All it is to clean out the bore and take care of that one O-ring, and the spring is back in there. We've reassembled our velocity adjuster, having lubed that one O-ring, and that's all the work there is to do this entire portion of the marker, the ASA / velocity adjuster maintenance. Now, the Pops has an O-ring inside there. You can lube that as well. I don't know if I ever remember them needing disassembly maintenance on that ever. I hardly ever do this. I would say like twice a year, I'll take like 1 drop of Gold Cup oil, like the kind of stuff that you'd use on a rammer, and I put like 2 drops in the ASA, and then let shooting it cycle all that around. And it will cut your oil to a slightly lighter viscosity or whatever, but you don't even really notice it. And that will get lube around the little O-ring that's in your ASA pin, etc. That has seemed to be sufficient. If someone knows different, feel free to put a comment below for sure. That's what I've always done. And to be honest with you, I did that because of back in the day when all of our markers, we didn't use any grease. We just used oil for everything. So that's what I did for ASA maintenance. And I've just always done that. They do disassemble. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but the way you disassemble it is to force the pin. This little release for the pops is spring-loaded. And if you force it in extra far, you can pull this piece off, and then you can disassemble the pop. So that's for another time. I'm not going to do that now, but it's not too hard to take apart. If you ever need to, you can Google how to do it. In fact, I'm pretty sure there's a Planet Eclipse video on how to do that. But I wouldn't sweat that. A drop or two of oil like twice a year, in my opinion, is sufficient to keep that thing working. All right, we've completed all that maintenance. This simply goes back together like this. We're going to get our 2 long screws and put these back in. And like I said, I don't know what the recommended maintenance for this is. I don't remember the interval. I do it probably, I don't know. I don't even have an interval, like whenever it occurs to me, which is to say, this is something you don't need to do regularly. It's not like your bolt service. Check the manual. Check the manual for the interval. I honestly don't remember what it is. Oh, I put it back together without putting the cap back on. See, everybody makes mistakes. Hold on. I know you guys. I won't edit it out. I'm happy to reveal myself to be an idiot on my video. So I put this back together without putting the cap back on the velocity adjuster. You don't ever want to have leftover parts. The cap for the velocity adjuster. Remember we took this off with a 3/8 wrench? Well, we got to put it back. Oh, by the way, there's an O-ring on here. No, you know what? I thought it wasn't dry, but it actually is a little bit dry. This is not a dynamic O-ring. It's just like a gasket essentially. But still, it's never hurts to put a little bit of grease on every O-ring, whether it's static or not, just to keep it from drying out, keep it from sticking to materials, whatever. I did the same thing there. Put a little bit on there, rub it around, and then we thread this back in. Now, there's a hole through this across it, so that I don't have an Allen wrench here that'll fit in it. But if I did, like, you can put this pick through the hole and to turn it. But like I said, there's wrench flats on it, and it's a 3/8 size. And I'm just gonna give this a snug down. You don't have to go crazy. There's an O-ring there that's sealing it. It's not your Herculean strength that's sealing that air. It's the O-ring. So don't go mental. Just like give it a nice snug. All right. Put the spring back in. I mentioned that spring might come out, and it did. All right. Now we're really putting it back together. Put the screws in. Ba ba bum ba 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 bum ba 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 bum ba ba bum. All right, we're gonna do that, and now that's all back together. We're completely ready to roll with that. Let's look at the bolt. I put this aside. Okay, so this is the stock bolt in here. It works great. I have no problems with this bolt whatsoever. I actually have been running the soft tip. I'm going to show you. Planet Eclipse makes an accessory soft tip bolt where the outside of it is the same. I'll show you by pulling this out. There it is. I'm so bad at doing that. Like that, right? The outside's the same, but the center, the bore of it's different. The one that comes with it's a hard tip. That's all machined aluminum in there, and it's in a bit of a dished face shape. Right? And then they have this accessory soft tip where there's a rubber insert in there, and it's flat, but the center of it is very flexible, so that we can presume, I think, that when the bolt goes forward, the ball probably flexes that back slightly, so it's still dished a bit. Performance-wise, there's no difference whatsoever between these two in any way. The soft tip bolt is there just to allow it to shoot the very most brittle paint in cold conditions. Now that said, I'm all about not breaking paint, right? Who isn't? And because there's nothing like negative, there's no downside to it that I can tell. I just run it all the time, because even if it's like I don't know what the numbers are, but whatever. Like, even if it's a 0.5% less chance of breaking a ball, I'll take it, right? Why not? So I just run it all the time. I don't just run it in the winter. I put the stock one back in to show you, but we're going to put it back together with the soft tip. All right, so here's the bolt. The way this comes apart, first we unscrew the can. You just grab with your hand, it just unscrews, super easy. And we can see the valve assembly here, and the bolt. You simply put your finger on top of it, and push it down. It just pops right out of the bottom. Okay. I'm going to go through and disassemble this whole thing. Then we're going to talk about the functionality of like what to pay attention to, I should say. The spool rides on a spring. We can see here that I can push this down. And the reason for that is that in the bottom portion in here, in this chamber, when this moves during the firing cycle, it functions to trap part of the discharge of air that otherwise would be vented to atmosphere, and it traps it for the next shot, making the core more efficient. I don't know what the numbers are, but that's the point of that thing, and it works great. It's reliable, pretty cool. So yeah, so that's how the can comes apart. Now, this is interesting to me. By the way, if you look at I'm about to tell you that there's wrench flats on this blue part. Don't put Allen wrenches through these holes. That's what people tend to do. There's flats on here, and you can see mine is a little bit beat up. It doesn't affect the reliability. That's my fault. You can see those edges there are beat up. I needed to do maintenance on this really fast when I was playing, and I just reached for the wrong wrench, and I put the wrong size wrench on. I didn't pay attention. I like cranked it real quick and like beat up the corners, but it just makes it look bad. It doesn't affect it doesn't affect it at all. This is a weird thing about this. Everything on these markers and most markers is all SAE sized, right? So when you put a 1/2-inch wrench on here, it doesn't fit. Like none of my SAE wrenches fit on this. A 13mm wrench fits on it perfectly. So if you're going to keep a wrench for it, have a 13-inch wrench in your toolbox. I mean, 13-inch, yeah. 13mm wrench in your toolbox. You can, like I said, you can stick a thin Allen wrench through the holes and turn it. I don't like to do that. It beats up those edges. And who am I talking about the beat up edges, right? I just showed you that part of the flat. But you do have these flats. Don't put pliers on it. Like, be a human. Find yourself a 13mm wrench at Harbor Freight. Put it on there. It works great. And you just hold on to the rest of the core and turn it and loosen it up, and it comes off. Now, when this comes off, you're going to want to keep your hands on the blue part. It doesn't spring apart and come flying apart, but there are parts inside that you don't want to lose. So I just hold on to that, and then you can take off the top of the valve assembly, and then here you have the actual spool, right? And then inside there's a spring, and then this little cap end, well, insert, I guess, in the spring where that rides against the back of the valve body here, in the front and the back of the spool. And you can see, like I said, I wiped this down so that I wouldn't be making a mess when I took it apart. So here, now we've got the bolt totally disassembled. That's all the parts here. Now we'll start at the front, work our way back. The bolt, now I mentioned I'm going to put the soft tip bolt in, so let me swap that out. Go back to our trusty Dow 33 light and lube this front bolt O-ring. And of course, I already wiped it down, but should go without saying, you should wipe it down first, clean it up. This back O-ring is a bumper. It doesn't really need, a ton of lube, but like I said, I lube every O-ring all the time because it's not going to hurt anything, and it'll help the longevity of it. All these O-rings grease the same way, just a little bit on your finger, or if you use a brush, you can do that, or other implement, but just enough when you wipe it on there so that when you look at it, you can see that you've put some on. You don't have to slather it on there like crazy, okay? Now, here, this is one of the most critical parts, the O-ring that rides inside of this can, and that's what the bolt rides on when it comes in and out. The reason I'm talking about that is you don't need to do maintenance on these like every time you play, by any stretch. Again, I don't remember what the recommended interval is, but you can go a long time. Like I mentioned, I have a buddy who shoots a 170. He never does any maintenance, and the thing just shoots all the time. It shoots great. But if the paint you use, so I'm sure you've noticed at some point you shoot paint and it leaves like this linty mess on the core of your marker, whatever kind of marker you have. If where you play has paint that's like that, in this particular marker, that linty buildup is going to build up right at this junction between where the bolt is in here, riding on that O-ring, and on that O-ring itself. And if you leave that there, again, not a disaster, but it will accelerate the wear of the O-rings. And for that reason, I recommend, I always service my markers every time I play, not because they have to have that much service, but because I might detect some other issue that is minor now, but might be worse later, and I'm about to get to one of those in a second. But also, your O-rings will last longer if you keep them clean of that debris. So, and it only takes a minute to do this. So, yeah, disassemble the whole thing. We've got the bolt lubed already. We're going to get more lube on our finger, same thing, and I'm going to wipe it inside there so that I have like a little pile of lube, and then I'm going to put my finger in and just like spin this around and smush it all the way around. And that will result, same thing, you can see it and you can feel it. It's just enough, you probably can't really see very well in there, the lube, but just enough so you can tell you did it, like I keep saying. And then we're going to do the same thing to the outside can O-ring, which is another non-dynamic O-ring, meaning it doesn't move during the firing cycle. It just seals against the body. But we're still going to lube it just the same. And then we're going to put our bolt. Whoops, maybe I'll put it in the right way. All right, now this assembly is complete. Let me wipe my hands off. All right. This is the other reason to service your 170 bolt regularly. I'm going to put this together, and as I go, I'll show you why. We're going to lube this spool. Same, I keep saying the same thing. None of the methods change here. Just enough so you can see it's on there. Just a happy little pile of lube. And I'll get the top one too. Okay, so here's the thing about this part of this is the one pitfall you got to pay attention to, and is a good reason, in my opinion, to do a real quick check of your bolt system when you play. All right, so I'm going to put this down for a second. We're going to put it together. Actually, I'm going to do this. Turn it upside down. Put the spring in there with the that little metal plunger piece I showed you that goes inside the spring. Put it like that. And then the back of the assembly over the top, so you can just feed this right up through the middle, and you'll feel where that fits into the assembly in the back of the valve, right, or the back of the can, I should say. Then we put this over the top, and it threads in. Okay, so this is the pitfall that makes me want to service my 170 every time and check it. This, you see I'm threading this on, I mentioned to you. I'm going to grab my 13mm wrench and hold on to this can, and I'm just going to make sure that it's snug. Okay, if you don't do that, and this piece becomes loose, it allows the valve to not stay centered in this bore, and repeatedly shooting it that way will cause the end of this spool to snap off. Now, it's not a very expensive part. You can get it from Planet Eclipse. I don't even think it's $20. Very reasonable. However, if you don't happen to have a spare and you do that, you're done shooting your 170 for the day, right? So all I'm saying is when you do the service, by nature of it, you're going to make sure this is tight because you just had it apart, and that way you know that won't happen. At the very least, pop your can off real quick and make sure this is tight. If this gets loose and you shoot it, you're going to break the spool. Don't do that. And by the way, this just threads on. Everybody's done this on some kind of marker. Just twist it on, done, completely finished. I'm just going to wipe my hands off before I pick up my marker. But I don't mean to make that sound like, oh, this is a reason that 170s are not reliable. They almost never come loose. But if you're a person who neglects maintenance, we got to put it back together, don't we? If you neglect maintenance, and you don't take the thing apart for 6 months, it's not inconceivable that thing can come a little loose. And if it does come a little loose, you're going to snap off the spool. So don't do that. All right. So we're going to put this back together. Body fits in this little tang on the front of the frame. Just gently, like always, whenever you're assembling frames and bodies, there's really nothing here that you're going to pinch or whatever, but there are wires, right? So just make sure they're lined up with it right in the middle where they're supposed to be, so that when you put this down, you're just hitting the frame all the way and not pinching something in between. And you can feel the difference, right? It's on there nice and square. We're going to put this screw in. And after I do this, I'm going to show you guys one quick thing. I'm going to put this screw in. Oh, look at what I did. It's the second time I assembled it without a part. Remember I told you guys about that seal that goes on top of the Noid for the you don't want it to go flying? Yeah, well, it's still sitting on my desk. I didn't put it back in the gun. That would not have worked. Get the seal back. Get in front of there. Make sure you put that little black seal back in there. It's not going to work without it. All right. we are. All right, I'll put the screws back in. I'm going to put this back together real quick, and I'm going to show you guys. Now, I went on and on about all the different little minutia about how to do this, right? And I might have made it seem like it's going to take you an hour to do this. Now, I know plenty of you have done this before, and you know that it's not hard to do. But I just want to demonstrate for everyone. It'll just take it. This is kind of the point. It'll just take a short time. I'll put this screw in. I'm going to put our freshly serviced bolt in. I'm going to reattach the battery. When you put the battery in these, you want to make sure that the wire is hanging out of this and not trapped inside here, because you could pinch it and break a wire. Don't do that. And then this slips right over it. Bob's your uncle. It's done. So this is the thing I wanted to show you real quick. I went on and on about that for like seemingly forever, right? About how long, you know, about doing all that maintenance, and it took a long time. And I know this video is dragging. You probably, most of you are probably gone by now. But I just want to show you that it is not a long and involved process. So let's I don't you know what, I'm not a cool enough video customer to show you a running clock, but you pay attention. Like, just get ready with a stopwatch right now, and we'll look at what the timestamp is, and we're gonna see how long it takes to do all that, right? So we're gonna maintenance our marker now. We don't need to disassemble it. We're just gonna do the maintenance, right? Okay. So we take the bolt apart, and I'm not gonna rush through it. This is like regular speed. I just want to demonstrate how simple this is. I'm gonna pop the bolt out and grab my 13 millimeter. Take that out. Take out the spool. I got the spring in this thing, and I'm going to do the whole process again, just to demonstrate how fast this is. Right? Wipe it all down. Wipe down the top here. Wipe the bolt down, nice and clean. Remember, I mentioned to you, I'm going to clean this inside O-ring. That's where that lint gets collected. You don't want to wreck that thing, right? And then make sure I got that all clean. Yep, that's all clean. You don't really have to worry about anything in here. If you want to, you can run a little Q-tip in there. Just a little bit of dirt in there. I got it. All right, so that's done. We're going to grab our spool, our lube. And you kind of see where I'm going with this, right? Like, neglecting the maintenance on your marker, there's just no excuse, because it takes like no time at all. So I got that finished. Going to drop the spring in here, drop our little plunger in here, stick it in the back cap assembly. This blue cap goes over the top. Thread it back together. Tighten that up. Now we can see this moves nice and easy. I wiped this down, so we got to re-grease these O-rings. And get this one here. Get that one on top. I need a little bit more. All right, and that's done. And we're going to take our bolt, and we're going to lube this top one more time. We're going to put lube on this bumper, just so it's not a dry O-ring. Lube that bottom one. Good. That's done. We've already cleaned the inside of this out, so I'm going to wipe my little hill of lube on that inside one, spread it around, put this together. Perfect. Bolt goes in here. Bolt goes through. This goes on. This is a fully serviced and ready to go core. Done. I don't know how long that took. I'm going to say 3 minutes, maybe. Right? If you're not doing that, you're just lame. Right? It takes. Don't worry. I'm not going to do the ASA again. But just to let you know what you're up against. Like 3 minutes, in and out, done. And once you've done it twice, it'll be even faster. So no reason to neglect your maintenance. Don't do it. If you're still with me, unbelievable. I really hope that you, I hope you like these as much as I do. There's nothing bad to say about these markers. I love them. They shoot great. They're super reliable. They're so popular. I think they're $850 new now, which is a bit of an increase. And people are selling them used for like $7.25. That's like very good value retention. But that's because of how great they are, right? You can see, people always say I'm a hater. I'm not trying to be a hater. I'm just making an example. The amp shocker is much newer. It just came out in November, and they're $900, and I've already seen them for $700. Not just already, but almost daily. They're for sale for $700. I'm sure I could buy one for $650 or so if I wanted to be a little patient. And these things have been around for years, and they're still, selling for like $100 off of new. Great stuff. So I want to know what you think about the 170R. Would you please, I'm begging you, like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you want to see more like this, I definitely want to hear about it. I realize this is like a tragically long video, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some timestamps in the description below so that you can skip around and find different things. I know there's some nerds out there like me. I'm sure there's a few people who watch this whole video, and I love you for it. But hit me up. Let me know what you think. 170R. It's pretty awesome. Have a great day. Thank you very much. I mean it. Thank you for watching.